So our first letter, D, stands for delays. And I would like to talk to you specifically about emotional delays. Those with Down syndrome suffer from what we like to recognize as emotional delays. And I found a really great academic journal that went through some studies and discussed exactly kind of what that looks like. And from the abstract, it says this: some children with Down syndrome may experience difficulties in recognizing facial expressions, particularly fear, but it is not clear why nor how such skills can be best facilitated. And so, what they did is they completed a study, and this was done very recently in 2016, where 81 children, including those with Down syndrome, but also those typically developing and with intellectual disabilities, were told to match unfamiliar adult their faces based on facial expressions. So they gave, and it was the 6 universal signs of facial expression. So happiness, sadness, fear, anger, disgust, and surprise. And they were given that word and then a picture of what that face looks like. And they were asked to match them accordingly. And what they found is that those with intellectual disabilities and Down syndrome were slower at recognizing facial emotions, respectively. And those with Down syndrome had a harder time recognizing one particular emotion, which is fear. Now, I found that very interesting, and I went a little bit deeper to understand why that one emotion had a bigger delay than the rest. And what I found is that the children with Down syndrome did not differ significantly from the other groups in their ability to label basic emotions or in their speed and accuracy of emotion matching overall. However, in relation to specific emotions, they were significantly less accurate than the typically developing children in the recognition of fear. So fear is processed in the amygdala, which is a part of the brain, and in those with Down syndrome, the volume of activity in the amygdala is delayed in comparison to those that are typically developing. And so the amygdala, the part of our brain that processes fear and negative emotion most of the time, is a little bit slower in those that have Down syndrome rather than those that are typically developing, which I thought was very interesting. And so it's harder for them to recognize and label the emotion fear. Another interesting find is that research done in 2012 has shown that adults with Down syndrome may focus on the lower more than the upper half of the face when processing emotional expressions. And so they watch the mouth and below the nose to process emotion more than the eyes, which is another reason why they are delayed in their processing of emotion, because typically when we watch someone respond to something, we can see their emotion based off of their eyebrows and their eyes and just the way that their face looks at this angle. But adults and those with Down syndrome are watching the lower half, and so they're not as quick at recognizing those emotions. So going forward, as many children with Down syndrome now attend mainstream school, additional support and emotion recognition may therefore be required to facilitate social interaction with peers in their own age group. The results of the present study suggest that labeling emotions are using exaggerating emotional expressions may be helpful here, at least for some emotions. And so what I would like for you to remember when you have a student with Down syndrome is that 1, of course, advocate, and 2, exaggerate. Advocate and exaggerate so that those with Down syndrome may not experience the difficulty of a delay, but rather be loved and served through your advocating and exaggeration.